Hello, everyone. I'm Dian Griesel, also known by some of you as Silver Disobedience. This is the Silver Disobedience Perception Dynamics podcast. And again, I am so excited. We are producing these shows in collaboration with Manhattan Center. We're in TV2 right now, where a lot of really wonderful artists have worked, recorded, practiced. So it is so much fun to be in this. I feel the good mojo and the juju as we start every one of these episodes. And today, this is going to be really fascinating. I met Sue Phillips a while ago, and she is one of the world's most established, iconic fragrance experts. She created fragrances for Tiffany's, for Diane Von Furstenberg, for Burberry. And we have her here today, and we're going to be talking about the tie-in between fragrance and our identities. So, Sue, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you so much for having me. It's so lovely to be here. Great studio, and you look terrific, and thank you for having me.
Thank you, and I smell good, too, thanks to a scent you just gave me, and I'm honored to be wearing.
Very happy you like it.
So, Sue, we need to start somewhere at the beginning. How does somebody become so aligned with scent to make this your entire career and passion?
Well, it really was all serendipitous. I didn't have anything in my sort of career mind focused to be in fragrance. In fact, I was a singer and an actress in South Africa. But my mother was an amazing artist and a homemaker, a pianist, a musician, and an incredible entertainer. And so I grew up with a lot of multi-sensory experiences, which I didn't even know at the time. It was just automatic. You came home, you practiced the piano. You went, watch your mom cooking or baking. And then she had these beautiful parties. And then I would go into her studio and I see her painting and doing calligraphy. So art, music, food was always part of my, focus. And what happened was when I came to America, because I had auditioned for a theatrical position at RADA, Royal Academy of Dramatic Art, because I grew up as a singer and an actress. And sadly, they didn't accept me because there were about, 1,500 applicants for maybe 10 positions. So I came to New York. My brother was living here. By this stage, I had seen New York. I'd fallen in love with it, and I decided to emigrate and come here. So I went to an immigration attorney, and he said, "What do you do?" I said, "I'm a singer and actress." He said, "Forget that. We have 20,000 out-of-work singers, and we don't need another one." But he actually offered me a position. He hired me to be his office assistant and manager, and he said he would process my green card. So at night, I would go singing and acting. During the day, I would work in his office. And at the end of the year, I got my green card, and I had 3 job offers through a headhunter. One was in banking. Definitely not for me. One was in fashion, and I didn't know much about fashion at that time because we were actually ostracized from the rest of the world because of the South African politics. Mm-hmm. The 3rd job offer was to work at Elizabeth Arden. And I said, aha, fragrance, cosmetics. It aligned with all the things that I loved, art, music, food, just a wonderful sort of confluence of all the things that I loved. And that's how I started in the cosmetic industry. I was the national training director for Elizabeth Arden. I had to learn about fragrance. They told me I had to go to Macy's. They positioned me there as an, quote, intern, where I learned about how to talk to the customer, how to relate to the customer, what fragrances they would like. So it was really, one-on-one and on-the-job training. And I landed up eventually traveling around the country doing fragrance seminars and training seminars for Elizabeth Arden's fragrances. And then they promoted me to marketing and product development. Then Lancôme hired me as marketing director for fragrance and men's skincare. And then finally, Tiffany hired me as executive vice president, and I created and launched the first Tiffany perfume. So it's remarkable. It goes on after that, but that's sort of the beginning of it.
I've never been able to remember the book, but did you ever read the Harold Robbins book where it's about the perfume industry?
Yes, the Jitterbug. I have it.
Which one was it?
It's called the Jitterbug.
Yeah, and oh my gosh, it was such insight
Yes.
into what goes in to perfume and how huge the industry is. You don't think about it, and then all of a sudden you'll be reading about some celebrity, maybe it's Nikki Hilton or something like that, or Paris Hilton,
Right.
more so, and you'll see the amount of money she makes broken down, but it's primarily from her perfume.
Oh, absolutely. See, licensing is such a huge thing. It's such a huge part of building a brand. Most designers and most celebrities will then license their name to big conglomerates and big companies to do fragrance, because fragrance is a much lower price point than of a couture designer or a celebrity's personal appearance. So for maybe $150 or $200 or $300, you can buy into the DNA, the brand of either a celebrity or a fashion designer, as opposed to a $5,000 couture dress. But you can say, I'm wearing Paris, or I'm wearing Chanel, or I'm wearing whatever. So you get that wonderful sort of cross-marketing opinion and focus because you're wearing the designer or the celebrity's brand fragrance, as opposed to wearing, a Chanel outfit for thousands of dollars.
And you reminded me of a very funny story since you mentioned Chanel and how you can buy into a brand. When our daughter was probably 12 or 13, whenever Abercrombie was at its super all-time high and every, preteen and teen wanted to wear Abercrombie clothes and be just like the models in those ads. I remember going into the stores and you wanted to gag because the perfume was shooting out of everything. And not only did you want to gag while you were there, then, of course, your child wanted to own a bottle of that perfume. And I remember going out and saying, okay, if you want to wear perfume, I bought her a bottle of Chanel No. 5.
Okay.
And she's like, Mom, I can't wear this. Everyone says I smell like their grandmother.
Oh, right. Well, that's yes on both subjects. Abercrombie and Fitch was one of the forerunners of scent marketing or scent branding in stores. So when in Las Vegas, to try and overcome the smoke odors, because in casinos everybody was smoking. And in fact, I worked with a company and I landed up working and doing fragrances for them. They wanted to ameliorate the smoke odors in these casinos. So they put in an air conditioning system, and somebody had the bright idea, why don't we put in a fresh scent? So they put in a lemon scent. And what happened was, through the air conditioning system, the HVAC system, it would diffuse the scent of the citrus or the lemon, whatever it was. And it stimulated people, it woke people up, it gave a very nice aroma in the casinos, and that was the forerunner of scent marketing in all these casinos throughout Las Vegas and basically throughout the world. And many companies also create these fragrance aroma, they diffuse it in these HVA systems and so on, to also reflect the brand essence. Is it a corporation? Is it a fun place? Is it in Florida with its light and citrusy? Or is it a very beautiful oaky, more classical building or room with wood-paneled, oak-paneled, So it would be a different fragrance. So that was sort of the forerunner of scent marketing and branding. The comment that your daughter made, I hear all the time. So that's an interesting story. When Coco Chanel wanted to create her fragrance, this was in the very early 1920s. She was becoming a couture designer, and she realized that fragrance would be a really great extension of her brand, of her fashion brand. She went to a very famous perfumer called Ernest Beaux, Beaux. And she said, Monsieur, I want to make a fragrance for the women I'm clothing. I want to make something fresh and feminine and very modern. And at that time, everything in the fragrance industry was very high quality natural ingredients. Mm-hmm. And he was concocting formulas with a new molecule, which was called aldehyde or aldehydic, a combination of al from alcohol and dehydrogenated carbon zones. So that became the word aldehydic. And aldehydic was a formula that was a molecule, but he infused it with some naturals. So it was a very powdery molecule.
Yes.
And he infused it with some rose and jasmine and so on. And he concocted this formula. So when she came to see him, he showed her all the different fragrances. And she smelled the first, second, third, fourth, fifth. Suddenly, the fifth one, she said, "Oh la la, c'est magnifique, it's so different." And it was this aldehydic formula, this molecule, that was so different in the 1920s, because everything in the 1920s was heavy and spicy and really dark. And this suddenly was powdery and different. But what happened was it became so popular. Oh, so what happened was he went back to, she said, je l'aime, I love it. He went back to his lab and he said to his assistant, "Jacques, what did you do? You put too much aldehydic in the formula. It's a mistake." Guess what? The most profitable mistake in perfume history. But at that
I love
time,
that story, because as soon as you said powdery, I can picture that
you can
scent.
smell it.
No matter where I am, I could walk down Fifth Avenue or,
Right.
West 34th Street and say, that person has on Chanel
Yes.
number 5.
But what happened, another thing that makes rose a little bit kind of old-fashioned is because our mothers and grandmothers used to have a face powder that was also scented with rose. And so when you put on the face powder and your children or whatever, our mothers and grandmothers wore that, we would kiss the grandmother or the mother, hello, and the first thing you would think of is, ooh, old lady, because that was, you see, scent and memory are so connected. So it's so tragic because I think rose is magnificent. There are rose powdery notes, which can be a little old-fashioned. The aldehydic definitely has that Chanel vibe. But I'm telling everybody, give florals a chance. Give rose. And I made you a floral fragrance, which has a lot of beautiful rose, jasmine, gardenia, frangipani, lily of the valley, and cyclamen. Because to me, you have that beautiful sort of sense of femininity. And to me, that's what florals are about.
Well, it's interesting you say give the rose a try. Lancome just sent me the most stunning gift, and I've done some different campaigns with them. And at first, it was a book. I couldn't figure out why this was so heavy. There was this book hidden of all different rose gardens throughout the world.
Fabulous!
But it is 15 or 20 little tiny samples of their new rose line that they are launching. So rose is the base.
Okay.
And
fabulous.
then they add musk to this,
Right.
or rosemary to this, or fern to this.
Right.
It just smells delicious, each one.
Oh, bravo. I worked at Lancome.
I know you
marketing
mentioned
director.
that.
And at that time, I was helping to develop, I was working on the original fragrance that they used, and they had what's called Magie Noire, Black Magic. And it was a heavy chypre, which was dark and patchouli and mossy.
Like when opium was
Exactly.
launched, it was that kind of...
Yes. It was a little more patchouli, though, and very sophisticated, very European, and not really popular with Americans. But, as being they used to call me Miss Magie, because I was out there pumping and promoting and, really positioning Magie Noire as the fragrance. And then I helped start to work on Trésor, which was the new fragrance. And then I never launched it because Tiffany hired me, so I was whisked away from Lancome. But it's lovely that Lancome was coming because that was actually their heritage. Their logo is a rose. So it's great that they're promoting a rose fragrance.
One of my other favorite Lancome campaigns I ever did was La Vie est Belle.
Yes.
And I had never smelled that before, but that's just a delightful one.
Right.
But it's funny, too, you talk about scents being, put into things. I think probably one of the only reasons I consistently go buy Chanel blush is there is some, I don't know which of their perfumes is infused in that blush, but as soon as I put it on my face, I'm smiling. What is that connection between scent and how we feel?
It is absolutely critical. And it is absolutely, that is the hallmark of fragrance because our olfactory system, is totally connected to our limbic system, to the brain. So when you smell something, this aroma goes straight to the limbic system, and it triggers a memory or emotion. And so what you smell at the time will remind you of what you're seeing or thinking or experiencing at the time. And scent and memory are so aligned and so triggered that, you can not see somebody or hear or think of somebody, but you can maybe smell something that will take you right back to when you were maybe high school or grade 5 or whatever, because it's such a powerful, powerful connection. And
I always think of the first woman I babysat for. Anytime I smell Clinique aromatics,
right?
It's like, Wendy.
That's a prime example.
Yeah.
The other thing that is so critical about fragrance is that it's tied into our sense of taste. So this thing right here can go up to the memory and down to the taste. And so scent and memory, taste and smell are very connected. And
where's the division when it comes with perfumes then?
Well, it's perfume. So what you're smelling on the perfume will trigger a memory and will help you think about something that from the past, or it will give you that feeling of happiness and confidence that, you're smelling. You just said when you wear that rose blush, it makes you feel happy and confident, because there's something in that formula that has a scent or an aroma that gives you that feeling of, the good dopamines that really makes you feel good. And what happened during COVID was something really tragic. People lost their sense of smell because that was one of the problems during COVID. The disorder that the olfactory bulb couldn't smell, and it went also to the taste. You couldn't taste. So during COVID, many people who never even thought about their sense of smell, having a cup of coffee in the morning and smelling that wonderful coffee aroma, suddenly they didn't smell the aroma. What's going on here? They didn't realize it. It was one of the symptoms of COVID anosmia. And millions of people throughout the world, throughout the ages, have lost their sense of smell, but they don't think about it because it's nothing that we are taught. From the second we're born, we align with our mothers because of that aroma olfactory connection. And suddenly, millions of people were affected by anosmia, and they realized they couldn't smell and they couldn't taste. And so people really went into a huge depression because, think about this. Everything to do with socialization revolves around food. Let's meet for lunch, for breakfast, for dinner, for, parties, occasions, anniversaries. It's all got a food and wine and smell connection. Suddenly, you can't smell, you can't taste. People got depressed. They didn't want to go out there. And people literally...
So there's a big scent and mood connection in
completely.
your perspective.
Scent
how?
and mood.
How?
Because...
Assuming we can smell.
Yes.
Where does that mood come in? Could certain smells make us feel less happy than others?
Absolutely. And it also goes to trigger a memory. So let's talk about vanilla. So everybody, most people love vanilla because it makes you feel happy, and it's something, vanilla cookies, vanilla ice cream, vanilla lollipops. When you fell, you maybe, to make you feel better, you got vanilla lollipop or vanilla ice cream, so that made you feel better. But the converse is, what happens if you really broke something and you fell and you couldn't walk for 6 months, and then suddenly your mom or the nurse gives you something vanilla, and you're saying, this reminds me of when I fell. So you see, the converse is true. A vanilla, which is a wonderful aroma, an ingredient, can trigger bad memories or good memories. And it doesn't really rely on what fragrance or scent or ingredient it is. It is a connection to the experience, to the memory, to the activity at the time.
So you have worked and advised a lot of companies when they are launching a perfume, when they're thinking about creating a scent. How do you help them avoid that quagmire of all those negative memories? Is it a blend of things so one is not more overpowering?
First of all, it's understanding what the brand ethos is. A fragrance for a rocking a rock star, or somebody who's a 20
Justin Bieber.
Justin
Let's
Bieber.
take, he's got a scent.
Right. That would not work well for somebody who's a classic, maybe pianist or an architect, or a brand or a company that has maybe an older demographic. So everything that I do revolves around the brand ethos. What is it? Who's the demographic? Who's their audience base? Who are they selling to? What is the advertising or the tagline? If it has a young vibe, then it should be something light and bright and citrusy, not heavy and dark. And so I equate different ingredients with a different demographic and a different sensitivity and sensibility. Somebody who's very, let's say, as a woman who's very sophisticated, who's wearing Chanel, who's wearing, and it also depends on her age. So there are certain fragrances that will embellish and reflect that demographic, that vibe, that brand, and there are others that will be a total disconnect.
Does that also have to do with hormones, like hormones that might be more prevalent in someone younger, connecting with that scent versus someone who's older?
Well, I think definitely it has to do with age, possibly hormones. I'm not a scientist, so I don't really can go talk about that. But, hormones will also give you a sense of either feeling confident and happy, or it'll start to get you crazy and get you, agitated, depending on where you are, certainly for women and where they are in their cycle. But I don't think it has... I'm not sure about fragrance with hormones, but I know fragrance and memory and connecting your brand essence is something that people look for.
And when you think of, let's say, the scent, the Dior scent that Johnny Depp advertises versus...
Eau Sauvage.
Yeah, okay. Where do you think the marketing is versus the scent that makes... Let's say a guy, we'll bring guys into this discussion, makes a guy say, I'm going to be cool or sexy or this or that the minute I put that on. How much do you think is the advertising versus the scent, or is it just the whole thing versus Johnny Depp?
Well, I think also certain companies want to align themselves with certain celebrities for the marquee value. Now, truthfully, Eau Sauvage is a classic Dior men's fragrance. It's got citrus notes. It's got some spicy notes. It's a sophisticated fragrance that was always for basically young men. It has a citrus brightness and it has a youth element to it. Here comes Johnny Depp, who's totally the antithesis of that. He's not youthful. He's not, a citrus vibe. He can be a little dark. He can be a little, the Pirates of Caribbean and all these things. But he's a name. And I think he did the blue. He also did.
Something blue, I think.
Blue Chanel.
Yeah.
So there are companies that will tie into a celebrity for the marquee value, and it has nothing to do with the fragrance. To me, that's not such a good idea. I mean, I think America is totally obsessed with celebrities, and sometimes the celebrity connotation and partnership and branding works, and sometimes it doesn't at all.
I would agree with that. I mean, I will say I'm sure there are, maybe it's terrible for me to say, but we have blunt conversations here. I'm sure there's some celebrity that if I knew they were advertising a particular perfume or fragrance, it would be the last one I would want to be known to associate with.
Exactly.
So it's very interesting talking about that marketing and the risk there.
Yeah, and some celebrities are so, besotted about the money and the royalties that it might be hard to turn down. But, in those instances, I think that they're selling out. Or the companies are selling out to a celebrity, because celebrities also have to protect their brand image. I remember years ago when Cher launched her fragrance. I think it was called Unforgotten or
Something
something.
like that, yes.
And everything about it was awful. They launch it, they launch it in a very select, tight distribution. Cher was a worldwide celebrity and an artist and a brilliant actress, and not to take anything away from her, but her notoriety and her fan base was, all over the world. And the company launched it in a very select distribution. And I got that. The cap fell off, the fragrance discolored the bottle, and so everything about it was forgettable. And I'm sorry, everybody, but the fragrance was called Unforgotten or something like that. And people didn't like it. I'll tell you, Lady Gaga, when she launched her first fragrance, and it was all, the ingredients were all really awful. Blood, sperm, that.
Yeah.
And she came up with this bottle, and they launched it at Macy's, and it was a huge flop because, Lady Gaga is such a brilliant personality and a talent. But she went a little wild, or they went a little wild in terms of the fragrance, and it didn't connect to the audience at all. So there can be some mistakes.
I didn't understand that one. I'm like, that is so dark. You have such a pop club, fun audience. People like to dance to your music. Why are you going into the over the edge Satanism almost? It was very bizarre.
Yeah.
What do the scents we choose say about us as people? Do certain personalities gravitate towards certain scents? What have you learned from what you've done customizing scents for people?
So I created 18 different fragrance blends, and I take people on a fragrance journey. First of all, I invite them to take the scent quiz, which people can take online too on my website, SuePhillips.com, because there are so many different ingredients and so many fragrance families that it's confusing. So I narrowed it down to 4: fresh, floral, woodsy, spicy. It's so easy to even think about that. But when they take the scent quiz, or they go online and take the scent quiz, there are, well, especially when they meet with me, I go through all 18. So they go on a fragrance journey, and as they're smelling and they're putting the one to the left that they like, the one in the middle that they may not like, or the one to the right, which they definitely don't like, we narrow it down to what they like. I would say that young people definitely like light, bright fragrances. In fact, I always give the analogy that Americans love fresh and clean. Mm-hmm. Everything, that on our grocery shelves is lemon, pledge, citrus, bright, clean. That's sort of the vibe and the mentality that Americans have to be clean and bright, and they shower 3 times a day because that's our DNA here. Europeans love florals, and English like lavender. The South Americans love spicy. The Japanese don't wear fragrance, but they give it as gifts. And in the Middle East, everything is oud, heavy, oud, and incense. And so there are different, cultural preferences, just the way there is food. Certain cultures love a certain food. I mean, you go to India and everything's very spicy. You go to France and everything is just, so creamy and very tasty, not very spicy. You go to the Middle East and everything is in the sort of spicy, aromatic, balsamic, balsamic and vanillas and so on. Mm-hmm. So there is something to be said about cultural differences in food, in music, and in fragrance.
That is fascinating.
See what you learn here?
Yes, I'm learning a lot from you. My guest is Sue Phillips, and we are talking about scents. And she is a foremost expert on this topic in the world. So I hope you're really paying attention here, because there's a lot to learn. Now I have you have a book here.
So during COVID, when COVID happened, I had to shut down my boutique and business came to a halt. And I love writing, and I'd written so many articles about fragrance for different publications. And finally I said to myself, well, there's no business, you may as well do what you love. So I wrote a book called The Power of Perfume. And it's it's got a lot of different chapters of different. It's not a very heavy tome. It's very informative, educational, and fun reading. And the reason I did it was because I wanted to get the message out that fragrance is so magical and so powerful because of all the things we've talked about. It connects your sense of smell and sense of taste, memory, and emotion. And it makes you, when you wear a fragrance that you love and that reflects who you are, which is probably a custom fragrance, and people compliment you on it and they say, oh my God, you smell beautiful. What does that make you do? It makes you sit up straight, it makes you smile, it makes you feel confident, and it makes you feel special because guess what? There's nobody else in the world that has that fragrance except you. So that's sort of what I love to do.
And there's a lot of truth in what you just said because there, I can't think of the place, it's downtown where you can go and have a custom perfume made.
Yes.
And I was one time, I met this woman. I'm like, oh my gosh, you smell so good. I just love that scent. So that Christmas, my husband said, well, he's always looking for things for Christmas. Right. I said, listen, forget all that other stuff you're thinking about. I just want this particular bottle of perfume. And let me tell you, it does not smell like that on me. I cannot wear it.
Precisely.
So that in itself is an interesting...
Right. Because what you were smelling on her reflected well with her body chemistry and her DNA. And when it came to you, it didn't reflect who you are. It was different. People don't know that. Mm-hmm. So we are all sort of besotted with different fragrances by different celebrities and designers and the hottest new fragrance you want. But the hottest new fragrance might not suit your body chemistry. And that is one of the reasons that I've been able to really talk to people and help people and create beautiful perfumes and get their responses and their reviews when they wear a fragrance that has been created especially for them.
Now you do this for people.
Yes.
You create custom scents.
Yes, both in person when you come to my boutique, and I give you the scent personality quiz, and you go through the quiz, and then we go through all 18 blends, and based on your reaction, I see if a person's eyes light up, if they smile, or if they frown. It's all to do with their facial expressions and their connection with the fragrance that they're smelling.
So it's very psychological on some level.
Very psychological, and it's so palpable because I can see in somebody's facial expression exactly what's going on in the mind. I love it, I hate it, I think it's good, I'm not sure, yes, I love it, this reminds me of. So and then at the end, they narrow it down to 3 or 4 blends, I call them blends, and they create something that is amazing. And what's fascinating for me is that I'm able to do this with people I don't know, I've never met. It's just they take the scent quiz online, and they tell me, oh, I like, Eau Sauvage, or I like Chanel, or I like something else. And many fragrances have been discontinued, so they are desperate for their fragrance. And then I go and research what their fragrance was that has been discontinued, and I see what the breakdown of the notes are. And then I look at their scent results, and I'm able to come up with something. I was blown away the other day. I had created this fragrance for this gentleman. He didn't know me. He found me. He said, basically, I found you online. I've been searching for ages for this, my perfect scent. And he told me what he liked. 2 very, not really modern popular fragrances, but very sort of obscure. And I saw his scent results, and I saw the fragrances. I looked them up. I was able to find that one was leathery and one was very sort of, well, maybe I'll say woodsy. Mm-hmm. Okay. But I created something for him which was very complex. And then he wrote to me before I sent it. He said, can you make me a larger size bottle? So that was great. He wanted a larger size without even smelling it. I sent it to him. It never got to him because somebody from the building saw the package, whatever it was, and stole it. So he wrote back. I said, did you get the scent? He said, no, I didn't. I said, okay. He said, I want to get it again. I said, okay, I'll make it for you. So this time I sent it to him with a different package, different shipping, and so on. And he wrote to me the day that he got it. He said, I am blown away. It is absolutely what I want. Everything about it is magnificent. And then 2 days later, he wrote to me. He said, I've already had 4 compliments from people. So now he wants to really help build my brand. But when I hear comments like that, when I've been able to create something so different and so complex and so meaningful for the client, it just makes me so thrilled and happy.
That is such a wonderful story. I want to talk to you about perfume etiquette.
Yes. Oh, okay.
I have a feeling you know where I'm going.
Yes.
There are people that put on so much perfume and cologne, and I'm a hugger. I always love to hug people, but I really don't want to smell like them for the rest of the day, especially if it's a terrible scent and then I'm gagging or my eyes are starting to water. What is perfume etiquette? And first of all, let's start with where should we apply perfume?
Perfect. So, I always tell the story that perfumers have been creating fragrances and perfumes for centuries, but people don't really know where to wear it. So the original sort of perfume etiquette, or where you wear perfume, was to create it and put it in all your pulse points. So where are the pulse points? At the ankles. So when women used to wear long flowing skirts, they would apply it to the ankles, and the swishing of the skirts would make the fragrance lift up. Behind the knees, in between the thighs, in the bosom area, at the pulse points, and wherever you want to be kissed. And so the perfumers used to say this. So he said, what do the Americans do? They do a spritz here and a spritz here. Who do they attract? The birds and the clouds. Because fragrance rises. So one of the things that I always believe in, fragrances should be put on the pulse points, not on the hair, not on the back of the neck, because you can't smell it, and not on clothes. But many people spray fragrance on clothes. First of all, it'll damage your clothes. If you have anything light, it might stain your clothes. Some of the fragrance and chemicals might affect the materials if you're wearing, depending on what kind of fabric. It could be a polyester, or it could be rayon, or it could be something else, and it'll distort the fragrance. And it's not a good idea to wear fragrance on clothes, because you might wear one fragrance today, something tomorrow or the next day, and then the previous fragrance lingers on your outfit, which is not a good thing. Fragrance is meant to be worn on cool, unscented skin. So when you come out of the shower or the bath, what you do is you can always use an unscented body lotion, unscented, and then you could apply your fragrance to your pulse points and on your areas. And that will, warm skin, I said cool, I meant warm skin. So the warmth of your skin will help diffuse the fragrance, and it will be a beautiful fragrance. I do agree with you, many people spray too much fragrance on their clothes, on their hair, and so when you're kissing them, you know, the lingering fragrance will transport to you. And you know, you said it's a bad fragrance. Well, it's a bad fragrance for you. They think it's a fabulous fragrance. So you see, there again, you don't know. So people should really wear the fragrance for themselves on their skin, and not try and reflect and, you know, encourage everybody else to wear the same fragrance, because it's not going to be the same. It's not going to smell the same.
You know, you mentioned something interesting. Don't put it on your clothes because you might wear a different fragrance. If you were going to guess, how many people who enjoy perfume or fragrances, how many do you think of different types the average person might own? Do they rotate, or do people define a signature for themselves?
Many people define a signature, and then when the signature fragrance has been discontinued and they're searching for something new, they become, you know, trying to, you know, like Hercule Poirot trying to find the right fragrance. And sometimes they'll try different fragrances. They'll go to the store, they'll try different fragrances, and they'll judge the reaction. Many people love their own signature scent, but many people also want to have a different fragrance for a different mood or a different occasion. So you wouldn't wear the same fragrance to an outdoor sporting activity than you would to a black tie fancy dinner party. So if you're
That's a
going
very interesting point. How would you, if you were advising someone, how would you advise them to think differently for that black tie event versus the afternoon
the same
polo match?
the same as you're wearing different clothes. You would never wear the same outfit that you're wearing at a black tie for a polo match. As much as you love that black tie outfit, it's inappropriate for an outdoor tennis, golfing, polo match. So certain fragrances would be not appropriate. Now, if you have your own custom scent and it's been created for you and it really reflects who you are, it has nothing to do with the activity, it has to do with you. So then you could wear that fragrance to any place because it becomes your signature. So I know it's a little bit of a dichotomy, but
But it makes sense.
but if you have a fragrance that has been created for you and you love it and it reflects who you are, and you want to own it and celebrate yourself, you can wear it wherever because it's not going to be a disconnect. Whereas if you wear something very heavy and very spicy and very, dark and complex to a black tie dinner, which is not your fragrance, and you wear that same fragrance to an outdoor polo match, it's a disconnect.
I'm curious. You talked about well, I want to ask you a question first. Fragrance, scent, perfume, cologne. Is there a difference between them all? Mm-hmm. What is
Yes.
what are those differences?
The difference is the concentration. So perfume is the most concentrated. If you think of a bottle, an empty bottle, so you have 30% of your actual perfume concentration, the perfume ingredient. And that's all you're allowed around, that percentage. The FDA and OSHA and all these regulatory bodies have determined that this is the measurement. And then you add the alcohol, denatured alcohol, and different kinds of water. So perfume is a liquid. It's different than essential oils. Essential oils has a consistency of, say, like olive oil. Very heavy, very occlusive. It doesn't really penetrate into your skin. It stays on the top, and you have to rub it in to really let it absorb. So perfume is the most concentrated. It's the highest level. It's the strongest version. The more you dilute it with denatured alcohol and water, it becomes eau de parfum, which literally means water of perfume, then eau de toilette, and then cologne, eau de cologne. So it's just a matter of concentration. It has nothing to do with perfume is for women and cologne is for men. It became a generic term for women's fragrances, perfume, and cologne for men. But actually, men can wear perfume, women can wear cologne. It's just a question of the strength and the concentration.
That was a great educational point,
It's
as
in my
so
book.
much of this is.
It's in my book, too.
What do you have here? You have a variety of items sitting in front of you.
So I just brought some of these atomizers that we use. I love to use sort of interesting refillable products. So these are, I call them twist and swivel. You twist, you open it up, and then there is a bottle in here. So there's.
Look at that.
And
so
this-
you would be able to refill
Yes,
the bottle.
Exactly. So you take it off, you untwist it. See, I really love sustainability. I hate throwing away beautiful bottles. And so this becomes very nice. And then I have smaller sizes, which is fun too. They twist and swivel. And I made one for you, which is in the rose gold. And then I have this packaging, and I love, again, so this is a little satin sachet. I'd send it in gold, purple, and black. Most men love the black brushed atomizer with the black sachet, and then women happen to love the gold and black. This looks very Chanel in the gold, and then the rose gold can come with a purple also. So these are really sort of my version of sustainability, so that you don't have to throw them away. You can always refill them and get refills, which I think is nice because people love these. They sit in this, you can carry them in your handbag, your purse, or a gentleman's pocket, and they're fun. You can travel with them. The largest one is only 20 ml, just under an ounce, so it's perfectly safe to travel with it on the planes.
We mentioned, you mentioned Coco Chanel, starting with Chanel number 5,
Right.
and that powdery scent. I'm curious, over the decades, we talked about countries having their own kind of unique scent or
Right.
vibe or go-to that the masses seem to prefer regionally.
Right.
Decade-wise, does desire for certain scents change over the decades?
Absolutely. It's in my book again, Fragrance Through the Decades. So you think about in the 1920s or 1910, actually 1904, Coty, Francois Coty was a real human being. He was a perfumer, and he created a fragrance called Chypre, Chypres, which really comes from the place called Cyprus. Mm-hmm. And when he went there, he experienced this overwhelming, heavy, deep, mossy, patchouli, leathery type. And he made a fragrance in 1904 called Coty. So that was the fragrance in 1904. In 1910, there was a fragrance called Vol de Nuit by Shalimar, I think. Mm-hmm. And then there was Chanel number 5 in 1920. In the 30s, there were all kinds of different fragrances. In the 40s and 50s, so in America, suddenly came, and there were a lot of European fragrances. In the 60s, the first sort of American designer fragrance was Norman Norell. And he created a fragrance called Norell, Norell. Which was a beautiful, also very heavy green fragrance. Then came the 70s. Remember, Revlon created a fragrance called Charlie.
Oh, yes.
My
next door neighbor wore it all the time.
The model, whoever the model
Call
was.
her Charlie.
Yeah.
Was that Sybil Shepherd, maybe?
No, it was not her.
Who was
that? Lauren Hutton.
Lauren Hutton.
And she would stride down. It was the start of sort of women's lib and independence. And she wasn't in a dress. She was in a pantsuit.
Yeah.
Striding in her 50s. So this was 70s. In the 80s, it was the first sort of celebrity fragrance. Remember Miss Elizabeth Taylor?
Uh-huh.
She came up with Passion. See, I'm remembering my fragrance history. In the 90s, so in the 80s, everything was totally excess. Luxuries, extravagance, over the top, big shoulder pads. Remember the TV series
Dynasty.
Exactly.
As soon as you said shoulder pads.
Exactly. So the 90s was a total reversal.
And those two stars, what was it? Linda Evans and Joan Collins both had their own perfumes.
Eventually, yes.
Yeah.
Then in the 90s, things reversed. Things became very, very watery and very, lighter. Mm-hmm. In the 2000s, was going back to the millennial. People wanted to go back because it was a whole new century and a whole new thing. So they went back to the classics, the Shalimars, the Arpège, and so on. And then in 2010, a whole new thing emerged. And there are many celebrities and designer fragrances, but this is sort of where customization came to be. Mm-hmm. People were tired of sort of aligning with celebrities and designers for the disconnect. And so customization became really important. And that's sort of when I started in 2012, my custom fragrance business. And so I can take you through fragrance through the decades, and, it's still customization. And now it's really about
personalization.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh, Sue Phillips. I could keep talking to you for hours, but we're at the end of this show.
Oh, dear.
If you were going to give someone last parting words on personalizing your scent, what would you say?
I would say don't fall into the trap of wanting what everybody else wants. Mm-hmm. Reflect who you are. Be passionate, be confident, and know that your persona is going to be what attracts people to you, not the fragrance that 25 million other people are wearing. So personalization, being confident and reflecting your individuality and your personality is important. Why wear what everybody else wears? Because perfume is the signature of your soul.
That is one great wrap up. I'm going to be thinking about that as I smell so good thanks to the perfume you gave me. I'm Dian Griesel. This has been the Silver Disobedience Perception Dynamics podcast. My guest today has been Sue Phillips. She is a fragrance expert who is world-renowned. Below, you will be able to find her links to her website, to her social media. I highly encourage you take the free perfume test that's right on her website. I'm going to go take it because now I'm very curious. What is my scent, even though I smell delicious right now, thanks to a gift from Sue? So please subscribe. Please tell your friends about this episode, share it, and see you soon.